Hey, what's up everybody? Devo here. And today I want to talk about... Actually, you know what? I just got home from work. Let's go inside. Alright, that's better. Today I want to talk about frame rates. Played around with a lot of different frame rates. Usually when I export everything, I export it at 24 frames a second. I like the look of it. It looks a lot more cinematic to me, and I like it. That's my preference. But I've seen a lot of videos about what you should be exporting at, what you should be recording at, and so on and so forth. And I like to record at either 60 or 30 frames a second. What I've been seeing is 24 frames a second exported should be recorded at 24 frames a second because, well, it fits in it perfect. I like to use 30 or 60 because I feel it gives me a lot more detail. There's a lot more frames to work with, but I get it. And I've never really tested out to see what the differences are. So today we're going to do that. But we should go inside the house because that's where my computer is. So yeah, let's do that. Okay, now we've made it into the house, so we can actually get the stuff going. And I'm just gonna set this up on a tripod. But first, it's kind of a cold day out today, and it's winter. Weird, right? So a nice warm cup of coffee sounds exquisite. So before we get into the video, let's do that. Coffee set up with the computer here. It's helpful. So what do you say we get right to it, eh? Alright, so I have everything opened up in Premiere Pro right now. I have a few different clips. One here, one right here, and one right here. I think it's the other one, yeah. Was it 24 frames a second, 30 frames a second, 60 frames a second. And everything should be at 24 frames a second. Should be. So yeah, I'm not gonna worry about layering in the clips. We're just gonna put them back to back, and that should be just fine. We did some Christmas tree decorating, and I figured that's a perfect test. The camera was kind of weird though. I probably wasn't paying much attention just because I was focused on getting the different shots and the frame rates and didn't really care what else was happening. So I'm not going to do any color correcting on that. The camera kind of changed colors in between changing the frame rates and stuff, which I thought was kind of weird, but you know, it works. It works just fine. So first of all, what I'm going to do is go to my sequence settings. Let's make sure we are at 24 frames a second. Just because that's what I use all the time. So that's what I'm going to leave it at for now. We will go into 30 frames a second and 60 frames a second as well. Just to give a better comparison. So that's already set. Nectar of the gods, I'm telling you. For those of you that don't drink coffee, start. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to remove the audio off of this. Yeah, this is like tutorials within a tutorial, I guess. So you just select your clip or clips that you don't want any audio. Hold the command button, push L. That'll unlink the audio. You can just do that and delete it. There may be other ways to do it that's faster and easier. I don't know. But if there is, let me know, because that would be kind of cool. I wouldn't mind. I like speeding up my workflow. I'm all about hotkeys. Now that we did that, let's find a good spot. That looks good. We'll just simply use that right there. We don't need super long clips. Not for this. Sorry, I do this and I don't usually talk through it. I zoomed in. I'm using the Apple Magic Mouse, and so it's all touch on top of it. So you can scroll up, scroll down, left and right, and hold Option, and you scroll left, and that'll zoom in. Scroll right, it'll zoom out. Makes things a lot easier. And actually, I'm going to drag my audio down here because I simply don't need it for this. That's looking a little big. We'll shrink that down. And there we go. So we have our clip there. And this is what I'm talking about. See? See all the green? Yeah, I don't know what that's all about. Something maybe not so close. There, going through ornaments. We'll use that section right there. And lastly, we'll find a nice little section in here. That part looks good right there. Gee, that was easy. So now that we did all that, let's actually compare everything. And ideally, I wish I had 4 cameras or 3 cameras to all record at the same time so we get the same clip in different frame rates. That would have been sweet, but I don't have that, so I'll just have to make do and see the comparison. Now, the thing with the recording in different frame rates is if you're exporting at 24 frames a second, you want to match that with your recording, because otherwise there could be a lot of jerkiness, and that's what I got out of the videos that I was watching, explaining why you record at that. So let's see here. This is 24 frames a second. Doesn't look too bad. It's 30 frames a second. It looks good. 60 frames a second. Still looks just fine. The lighting, the color, again, ignore that. That has nothing to do with the frame rates. That's all about the white balance and such was changing in there. So let's see what happens here if we slow things down. Let's go to, just go to 50%. Nothing crazy. Now let's see if there's a big difference. Okay, it's a little choppy. Recorder at 24, slow down that much. 30, still a little choppy. 60. Yeah, it's really not too bad. Actually, that's 60 frames a second. That looks pretty good. I've seen tutorials and ways to do slow motion at 60 frames a second, but I've never actually done it. What I was using previously was the LG G5. I don't have an actual camera to record videos. I've been using my phone. And I was using the LG G5, which let me record at 120 frames a second. It was only at 720, but it didn't look horrible. It's stuff that I could still work with. And that wasn't bad. 120 frames a second was awesome. So that's what I started with slow motion. I've never had to go to 60. What I'm using now, I've upgraded since to the LG V30. And phone was sweet, by the way. I love the camera on it. I absolutely do. But this camera, as opposed to 120, it can do it if I'm using the wide angle lens, because it has a dual camera system on the back. If I'm using the wide angle lens, it'll shoot at 120 frames a second. If I'm using the standard lens on it, and I'm not using the wide angle, it'll actually shoot at 240. I was pretty excited. All my research, I found out that it does do the 120 like I'm used to, so I was happy with that. When I got the phone and played around with it, I found out that I had been misled into the 120 in a good way, actually, because I found out that it can actually pump out twice as much. And the slow-mo on that looks phenomenal. I'm pretty excited about it, but we'll get into that. That was just a little offshoot, and I don't even remember what my original point was with that, but yeah, that's the gear that I'm using, so yeah, fun fact. So anyways, oh yeah, that's why I don't shoot, or why I've never done slow motion at 60 frames a second. So what I want to do actually is I want to see the difference. I would love a comparison. So let's do that. So we're going to set a keyframe here, drag this back up to 100%, zoom in, and actually these little anchor points right here, there's 2 of them. It's not just one thing with the divider right there. There's actually 2 anchor points in here. So let's drag these out away from each other a little bit. And grab this little guy just to smooth things out. And yeah, let's see that comparison. Let's check out the regular speed to slow-mo there. It's actually not bad. And I should have done some slider shots. That probably would have given us a better idea on, or given you guys a better idea on the research that I found. But the biggest reason why you don't want to shoot at a faster frame rate than what you're exporting at, if it's not perfectly divisible, is because you're missing a frame in there. So let's see, is there a big jump anywhere that we can find? There's a couple. Like, he's not moving faster right there than anything else. That's where the missing frame is. So there's a jump, and that's one of the reasons why people are saying export it at 30 frames a second. If you want twice as many frames to work with, record at 60, export at 30, and you're golden. I'm not going to change what I do. This is what I like, this is what I do, and I'm going to keep it the same. But it is fun to kind of dive into this and see what it's all about. Alright, so let's undo a whole bunch. Okay, now we're going to go back to normal. And let's see, go to sequence settings. Let's go up to 30 frames a second. See what happens there. Now again, here's 24. It still doesn't look bad. 30. And 60. All of which still look great. Let's go ahead and drop these back down to 50%. All right, now let's start back at the beginning. 24 frames a second. It's definitely choppy, but it's pretty close to that before. 30 frames a second, choppy. 60 frames a second, still looking pretty smooth. I don't see that extra jump in there either, like we had before. Yeah, look how much smoother that is. I'm watching this little guy right here. Probably should have. I'm watching this little guy right here. I'm pointing at the screen with my finger, like you can see exactly where I'm pointing. And that's looking great. All right, put all those back to normal. Sequence settings. Let's go up to 60 frames a second. And you know, recorded at 24 frames a second, pushed up to 60, exported, actually doesn't look too bad. It's 30 frames, here's 60 frames. And this is what I don't like about it. Like, do you see that? My personal preference, I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm not saying it's bad, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. The reason I don't do it is because I don't like how smooth that looks. It doesn't look right to me. So let's go ahead and drop these down to 50% again. Oops, I was hitting the button. All right, 50%. Yeah. And let's see how these look. Definitely choppy. A little choppy. And that looks pretty good, actually. I wonder how slow we can make this. What about 20%? Yeah, you can definitely see the choppiness there. Okay. We'll go 35 and call it good. Even 35% looks pretty good. All right, and so there's the comparison, really. So my takeaway from this is, if you want to export at 24 frames a second or 23.95, is that what it is? 0.976, my bad. Whatever you want to export at, it doesn't really matter. Shoot at whatever frame rate you want, export at whatever frame rate you want. Because at the end of the day, making these videos is art, and art is subjective. So nobody can tell you that it's right or wrong. They can say, in my opinion or my personal preference is something different. That's fine. What's your personal preference? Are these the videos that you like making? Do you enjoy it? Then keep doing it. It's good to know about the different options and different reasons why people don't do it. That's the reason why I look up this stuff. I'm always looking up YouTube tutorials, finding different things. If it's something that I've done a million times and I absolutely know 100% how to do it, I'll still check out a tutorial from someone that I've never watched before. It opens up a whole new world. Maybe in that 30-minute tutorial, there's going to be 5 seconds where they say something that sparks an idea in your head that you never thought of, and boom, there's more creativity. There's 100 more videos that you can make. And that's it. So, as a bonus, because we are talking about frame rates, let's talk about high-speed videos and slow motion. Not the 60 frames a second slow motion. We're talking proper slow motion with 120 frames a second. Now, let me see if I can find the video. I have a whole bunch of stuff in my camera roll here, or my library. And yeah, keep existing settings. I don't know if I need to trim the audio off this. I'm sure I do. Yep. Command L to unlink and delete that. Okay. Now this is, again, like this is shot at 240 frames a second. And on the phone, the LG V30, it still exports at 720p. So you have this small little window in here, which isn't a big deal. Because my videos are exported at 1080. But that's a simple fix. You just simply right click down here, set to frame size, boom, you're done. Full screen. And I mean, look at that. It honestly doesn't look too bad. I'm happy with it. I don't mind it at all. So let's find a short little clip in here. My camera was having a hard time focusing. The lens was smudged a little bit. So it doesn't look great. Actually, let's do it right there when he's walking right by. So push C on your keyboard. That'll give you your eraser tool. You can cut that. And let's pull this back to the beginning. So make sure your front one, so make sure the clip that you want to delete is highlighted. Hold Option, push Delete. And there, that's the ripple delete. It'll take away the dead space and put your video, or your video clip or clips, whatever's after that, and just replace it basically. It's a really cool thing, and if you don't do it, you accidentally just hit delete. You can just click that empty space, Option Delete, and do the same thing. That was probably one of my favorite things that I found out in Premiere. Love it. So anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're gonna go, yeah, that looks good. We don't want to go too crazy or do anything too big, just because this tutorial is running a little long already. And so we have that, right click on it, show clip keyframes, time remapping, and speed. And again, I am exporting at 24 frames a second, shooting at 240 frames a second, so I can actually drop this down significantly. 50% looks good, 30%, or what did we do, 35% on that 60 frames a second? That still looked pretty good. And now because I'm shooting at 240 frames a second, exporting at 24 frames a second, I can actually be a lot pickier on how slow I want this. The clip that we looked at before, 60 frames a second, dropped it down to 50, that still looked pretty good. Dropped it down to 35, that even looked pretty good. Going less than that, you start to see everything getting a little choppy. With this, I can drop it down to 10%, which I think is pretty cool because that gives me a lot to work with. So that short little clip is now, well, we'll say it's less than short. So one thing with, I don't know if it's all cameras and phones, or most cameras and phones, or if it's just certain cameras and phones, that when you record at a high speed, whether it's 120 or 240, it flickers just like this. Now, put this back up to 100%. You don't see it normally. That went by kind of fast anyways, but yeah, you don't see that flicker. But it's definitely there. So what I like to do with this is not a whole lot. It's and easy fix. I don't go in here. I don't choose any presets, any settings, any filters, any plugins, effects, etc., etc., etc. All I do is I simply hold Option, grab my clip, drag it up, and that makes a copy. What I then do is I'll zoom in just to make sure I can move it ever so slightly. Turn off snapping. You can push this little magnet, or you can just hit S. Drag it over by 1 frame. That's all. So now that I've done that, take my opacity, 50%, and then you can watch the magic happen. No flicker. Easy. Little bonus clip for you. I figured we're talking about frame rates, so 120, 240 slow motion, still in the ballpark of frame rates. All right, so I think we're about done. That about closes up what I wanted to talk about here. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me. You're going to be seeing a lot more of this and a bunch of other stuff, especially in 1 month. This is the very beginning of December, so we only have 1 month left of 2017. Honestly, like, I think about the year 2000 and it still, to me, feels like it was just yesterday. Almost 18 years ago. That's crazy, but that's not the point. The point is, January 1st, 2018, this channel, I might leave it up for a few more months after that. I don't know yet. But I will be posting mainly on a brand new YouTube channel. For those of you that have watched my previous videos, there are a few of them that do mention that this channel right here was actually for use when I was in a band years ago. I mean, this channel is like 10, 15 years old. I started to gain some followers on it, and then I quit playing in a band, quit posting videos, and I honestly completely forgot about this channel. So naturally, you know, the subscribers go away and so on. So it's almost like starting out new, but I'd rather just start my own channel. This one is youtube.com/theonlyfeedback, because Feedback was the name of my band at that time, which, for those of you that knew me back then, that kind of dates how old this is, this channel. But I'm going to start a brand new one. So to keep updates on that and find out how to get there, where to look, what to type into your URL, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Go ahead and like these videos as well. It helps me out to a point, even though this channel will eventually be going away. But I like to see the engagement. I like to see who is enjoying this and how many are enjoying it. It helps me. It helps me to make appropriate videos for everybody, so I know what they like and what they don't. So definitely like this stuff, because that's all it is. It's helping me out. It's letting me know what to do and what not to do anymore. Leave me comments if you want. That's fine. And also, make sure to follow me on Instagram. I post pictures every now and again. It was kind of a strong start, and then I got super busy, didn't do anything for a while, but I'm starting to get back into it. I'm posting pictures. I do a lot of Photoshop work, and that stuff's a lot of fun. So MCCDVO, or probably at MCCDVO. Is that how it works? It's like Twitter? You got an at? I don't know. Anyways, I'll leave a link in the description or whatever. Yeah, so you can find it there. But anyways, I'm going to get out of here. I'll get to editing this video, get it uploaded, and yeah, and you know the rest. Cheers.